Yes, ready. Then if you just want to look at me, that's okay. Okay. So, this is your first non-restaurant situation, or your first experience outside of running your own restaurant? Is that correct?
No, I've been doing lounges around the world for Qantas for some time. We opened a new Singapore lounge last year, and just this year in June, actually no, what I'm saying, in April, we opened Hong Kong, new lounge.
I see.
Which is terrific. And outside of Australia, those are the first two. And then, of course, this is my first experience of opening something here in America.
Restaurant or anything?
Anything, yes, yeah.
Do you come here a lot? Have you been coming here a lot?
Yeah, I love America. I've been here every year, a couple of times a year, every year for, gosh, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so. So, I've got a really fond spot I love LA, I really love San Francisco, New York, Chicago. Matter of fact, later on in the year, or probably next year, I'd really love to go and kind of discover down south.
Right.
You know, that whole American barbecue scene. So that's really kind of next kind of big discovery trip for America for me.
Right. In America, it seems there's a celebrity chef culture, and sometimes the name or the reputation of the chef exceeds their cooking, or that's more what they're known for as opposed to being known for the cooking. Is that the case in Australia? Have you experienced that?
Look, it does happen in Australia. There are some celebrities that are TV driven.
Right.
My fame's really driven from my relationship with Qantas.
Right.
The fact that I've had world famous restaurants for, Rockpool's 25 years old.
Right.
Spent the first 7 years in the top 50 restaurants in the top 50.
Right.
First 2 years in the top 10 in the top 50.
Right.
I've got 7 restaurants, 650 staff.
Wow.
So that's really driven my fame.
Right.
And I think so. I'm very famous for being a restaurateur and chef.
Right.
And I'm not so famous for being on TV, although I've done bits of TV.
Right.
It's not what drives me. What drives me is my staff, my restaurants,
Right.
and of course my relationship with Qantas, which is awesome.
And what was your first experience in cooking, or how did you start with that?
Well, I didn't start cooking professionally until I was 25, but I started in restaurants at 18, and because I did the front of house, I think it makes me a more balanced restaurateur.
Right.
But I really started cooking with my father at a very young age, 5, 6, 7. I remember cooking fish, barbecuing with him, making biscuits with mum, making pavlova.
Where was that?
Well, that was in Sydney, in Australia. So I mean, we're talking about early 60s, so it was a long time ago. And the reality of it is, I grew up. Dad was a kind of a butcher and a fisherman and a gardener. So we had our own fruit and vegetables. We caught our own fish. He was an amazing butcher.
Right.
All that sort of stuff. I just thought everybody ate like that.
Right.
And I really had a very privileged upbringing.
And the experience getting from that into the restaurant world, was that just incidental? You just happened to start working as a waiter or something like that?
Yeah, I did that. I just kind of thought I'm going to head overseas, so I'll start working as a waiter and get some extra money.
Right.
Like I probably knew after the first week that this is where I was going to end up for the rest of my life.
Right.
Because I just absolutely fell in love with the whole hospitality nature of it. And then I spent the next 7 years working my way up to assistant manager and manager of restaurants, which I ran. And then I really knew, probably a couple of years before I started cooking, that that's the direction I wanted to go in. And I just had to find the right opportunity, and I did find that with a chef who was a great friend of mine, Damien Pignolet, who had a 3-hat restaurant, which is like the top restaurant in the city. And he said to me, "Come and cook with me, and we'll start teaching you." And gave me a long list of books to buy and read, and
mentored you.
He mentored me because I had bought wine, and I was used to do all the wine tasting.
Right.
Drink lots of European wine, and I was managing restaurants, so I was wealthy enough to eat out a lot.
Right.
I was also really good at organising because I was running the restaurant. So I knew a lot more about the organisational part than most young chefs.
Right.
So I learned
the business part.
Yeah, and I learned very quickly. And I also loved cooking, and I always cooked at home.
Right.
My father was just such an awesome cook, and his whole philosophy still guides the way I do things, because my whole thing is about the ingredients. I'm completely focused on sourcing the best ingredients that Australia has to offer, and when we travel overseas, the best that it has to offer. I'm not one of those people who believes that chefs are artists. I mean,
Right.
you know, we're artisans. Cooking's a craft.
Right, right.
And the producers do amazing things.
Right.
And it's our job to interpret that and give it to the
Right.
customers in a cooked form.
Right, right.
It's not about reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so for me, that's what cooking's all about.
Yes. Going back to your childhood and things like that, are there certain dishes that you grew up with, typical Australian dishes, that you've now started to incorporate both into the restaurants and into the lounges?
Well, I think it's probably the multiculturalism that we have in Australia, like you do here in America. I mean, our relationship with Asia is very unique, and,
Right.
and a lot of the Asian cultures that live in Australia, the food is very authentic.
Right.
And so we've taken that on board in our cooking. You know, to give you an idea, in 1984 I went to France. It was my first big trip overseas, and I've been cooking for a year and a bit. And essentially I was cooking French provincial food.
Right.
And I went to France, and I went to 15 three-star restaurants in 30 days, and got fat and loved it, and ate amazing things, and marveled at the cheese and the,
Right, right.
and the quality of the ingredients.
Yeah, yeah.
And the cooking. When I came home, I thought, that's amazing French cooking in France.
Right.
Why am I cooking French food
Right,
at Palm Beach in Sydney?
right.
So at that stage, I'd always loved cooking Chinese food. My
Right.
father introduced me to it, and I loved eating it. I loved cooking it. So I felt the most authentic way I could be Australian is to integrate the things that I love to eat,
Right.
Chinese, Thai, Indian, into my
Which
food.
are part of the
Which are part of
Australian
the
cuisine now.
cuisine,
Yeah, yeah.
So in 1984 I started doing that.
Right.
That's why they sort of say that I'm one of the fathers of modern Australian
Right.
cooking. But for me, it's really about being able to eat something different every day in
Right.
a multicultural way. But I also go to the same kind of things in those cuisines. So for me, the most satisfying thing in Chinese cooking is barbecue pork and rice, or a wonderful bowl of noodles with chili sauce,
Right.
or a great bowl of pasta with a fantastic cooked ragu, or a beautiful simple zucchini sauce,
Right, right.
or a roast chicken, or a laksa.
Right.
You know, the simple things that would be home cooking in that
Right.
country, or a beautiful taco,
Right, right.
or some stir-fried chicken with gochujang in
Right,
Korean,
right.
and rice, or some marinated barbecue meat.
Right.
So I think that's
Basic but exotic.
that's
Yeah.
how chefs love to eat. You know, if you ask Ferran Adrian what he eats at home, he doesn't eat spherified food.
Right.
You know, he would eat a bowl of pasta.
Right, right.
Or a beautiful Catalanian dish.
Right, right,
It's
right.
classic.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm Courtney from Qantas.